Well, if you look at the first season of Cheers, we really did a lot of experimenting with the form until we really kind of settled that Sam and Diane was our money. If you look at like the first 6 or 7 episodes, there's 1 or 2 where you have different guys coming into the bar and the people at Cheers dealing with their situations. We thought, well, is this kind of a Barney Miller type of show where it's, you know, the money is the different people coming in? Is it the relationship shows? And when we really saw that the Sam and Diane relationship was the money, I think that's when the show really kind of gelled.
Which is a great point. You know, a lot of times shows don't find their footing or find their focus until it's into it a little bit, because you never know until you have the actors there. You could plan it out all you want and in the script and in the pilot, but then it kind of takes its own life, doesn't it? And in that case, Sam and Diane and Fraiser, you know, Niles and Fraiser, although I think early on they kind of knew what that was. But it's an interesting process how it evolves.
Yeah, every show has a life of its own, and you know, characters emerge, and you start pushing those characters forward, but both of those shows are so well balanced in terms of the structure of the shows. And we did have Sam and Diane at the kind of base of that, and the same way that Fraiser had the guys were very smart to have it be about Fraiser taking care of his dad, and having nothing in common with him, which gave us sort of an inherent conflict within the show. That's good. That's good. That's good series breaking, to coin a phrase.
Well,
Raymond would be another great kind of concept. You know, a guy in the middle between home and his new family and his old family, and how that clashes. Right away, you have conflict. And
well, you know, it's such a testament to these shows. I'll be in a meeting now, and someone will say, you know, we'd like to have a Sam and Diane relationship. It's become like a you know, a description of what you want it to be now, and it's really incredible. It was such a great relationship.
I mean, you have to really walk a tightrope when you have a first-year show, because you want to be ahead. On the other hand, as David said, you want the flexibility to see what works and be able to write to that, and sometimes it surprises you. You look at Happy Days, and Henry Winkler as the Fonz was just a peripheral character when the series was envisioned, and he kind of became the whole show. You look at Family Ties, and that was supposed to really be about the parents, and Michael J. Fox just took off, and Gary Goldberg was smart enough to recognize that and say, you know, let's make a mid-course correction and head there, because that's where the money is.
Yeah, it's that's part of the fun of the business, is when the magic kind of appears, and to be smart enough to focus on it.
And of course, you know, as we all know, casting is, you know, the big big other thing you've got to really nail down and get lucky with, too.
Well, now,
you know?
I'm going to go off topic for a second. Because of your writing, you basically wrote Tom Hanks' his future wife. Is that right?
Yeah. He met his future wife on Volunteers movie that we wrote.
So you guys wrote, was that a spec or that was an assignment?
No, that was
Tom calling us and saying, "Where can I find women?" And no, that was an assignment.
Yeah, that was an assignment. Walter Parks, the producer, came to us, and it's a typical movie story, actually. He came to us in 1980. We wrote several drafts of the movie. The studio put it in turnaround. It went to another studio. They got a director who put a different writer on it. The other writer did a horrible job. That studio decided to put it in turnaround. That director was fired. They went back to us with a third studio and had us basically throw out all of the other drafts.
So you basically wrote the version that got greenlit.
Yes, we did write the version that got greenlit. But it took 5 years.
It was a 5-year period.
Was Tom always in the mix, or he was casting at the last
No, you know,
time?
An interesting story. This is actually a great story. At the time we wrote it, we were kind of thinking Bill Murray. Bill Murray was not too old at that time. And one of our thoughts was, well, there's this young guy, Tom Hanks, who's on Bosom Buddies.
Had he done Splash yet?
No.
Really?
No.
Splash, yeah.
And people were going, "That's a TV guy." I mean, he was way too young. But Tom was at our agency and happened to get a copy of the script and really loved it. But nothing came of it. So now you flash forward, and we're looking to cast the movie, and at this point, Tom has done Splash. Tom has done a couple of other movies.
Some of the other Man with a One Red Shoe. And,
Right.
or
Bachelor Party
time,
and
Bachelor
a
Party.
couple of things.
Right.
And so the studio was very excited about that. And Tom apparently was being offered everything in sight and was turning down all these scripts. And he said to his agent, he said, "You know, there was a screenplay I read about 5-6 years ago about a guy in the Peace Corps, and it was really, whatever happened to that?" And the agent was like, "Well, I'll try to find it, but that's a needle in a haystack." Like an hour later, he gets a call from Walter Parks saying, "We have a submission. It's a thing about the Peace Corps." And the agent
Wow.
said, "Okay, send it over." It got sent over to Tom at 5:30, and Tom went leafing through the script, and he found there was a scene in the middle, and he remembered a specific joke, and that scene and joke were still in the script. He goes, "Yeah, that's the one."
Wow.
And an hour and a half later, we got a call that Tom's in.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, Rita Wilson was cast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rita was cast, and
She probably just read for the role. And
Yeah, no, they screen tested.
screen tested her. Some other. I remember Kirstie Alley tested for the part.
Phoebe Cates
Phoebe
tested
Cates,
for the part.
there's probably some other
Now,
people.
were you around for the filming?
No, they shot it down in Mexico, outside of Mexico City.
Right.
And we were actually doing some other stuff. So
Right.
but we strangely enough, they sent us back storyboards of some of the action stuff for us to see if we could write some lines within. So we were writing jokes off of storyboards, which was kind of interesting.
And it was great. They did let us see all the editing, and we were asked our opinion and that sort of things. You know, Nicholas Meyer, who directed the movie, was extremely gracious and open. I mean, you hear so many stories where the writer turns in a script,
Sure.
and that's the last he sees of the movie until the opening. But they involved us quite a bit.
Well, let's go back to Tom and Rita for a second. I feel like I'm.
Oh, you're really into that Tom and Rita thing.
Yeah,
huh?
it sweeps.
How hot was it?
I'm trying
that night
Yeah, I'm
in
getting
the
it-
tropics.
Yeah,
yeah.
Suddenly, I'm the guy from TMZ.
Yeah.
I need a large
You need
water
a big-
bottle
a big water bottle, and a law degree,
and a dude with long
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah.
But did anyone know? Were they dating?
I don't know.
or
No,
until
I
after?
think I don't know the exact story. I think Tom was getting
He was separated.
He was
Yeah.
separated,
Oh, okay.
or
Separated at the
already
time.
divorced, and I don't know if Rita was engaged or not engaged, but I think she did have a boyfriend. Strangely enough, she knew my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and we went to a party, a sort of a send-off party for the movie. And so I'm driving over with my wife Leslie, and she says, my girlfriend Leslie at the time, and she says, "Who's in it?" And I said, "Well, Tom Hanks and John Candy and who's the girl?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure of her name. It's Rita something, or it's Dina." I wasn't in that loop.
Right.
They had hired her, and they had signed off on her. And we walk in to this party, and Rita sees Leslie, and Leslie sees Rita and goes, "Leslie, Rita," and they're just hugging each other. And I'm like, and she goes, "What are you doing here?" She goes, "I'm in the movie. I'm playing the part of Beth." And she turns to me and goes, "You didn't tell me that." I said, I've never met her before. So right away there was this strange connection, and then I guess romance bloomed down in Mexico.
It's amazing. It's kismet because you guys met in the Army, because of the service.
Yeah.
Right? You wrote a script that introduced Tom to his wife.
Yeah.
Have you seen? Now we had Rita Wilson.
If you want to go all numerology on us here,
Yeah,
we
I'm
can,
sorry,
you
I'm
know.
getting a little.
I mean,
Number
actually-
7 is really the
actually-
This is bucking up into my spiritual show.
reason. Yeah.
We got the assignment based on MASH scripts, and
Oh, I see. I
we
get
never would have
Right.
gotten to write MASH were it not for the fact that we had been in the military and that we felt extremely comfortable writing
That's amazing.
those characters and writing that world. It's like one of my favorite shows is Justified.
Right.
And I turn to my wife and I go, I could never write this show.
Well, you got-
know, all these hillbillies in
Yes.
Kentucky. I have no idea how these guys think.
Well, you got, MASH based upon the service, and I got a lot of sleepaway camp movies based upon my service.
You got the better deal.
In Bunk 8.
Yeah.
That was my wheelhouse. But it's funny because I was writing this movie, Summer Rental, around the same time.
Also John Candy.
With John Candy, and I was working with Carl Reiner on it, and we cast John Candy, and he was finishing up Volunteers. I still remember sitting in a room with Carl, and when we made the deal with John, he called him on the set of Volunteers. And to show you how long ago it was, I mean, even the connection was bad. I heard Carl talking at the top of his lungs. And so John basically came right from Volunteers to Summer Rental.
Rentals, yeah.
And
Yeah. Wonderfully sweet guy.
Oh,
Just
yeah, he
as
was.
nice a guy as you could hope for to imagine, and even nicer.
You know,
Yeah.
when we wrote that Tom Tuttle character,
Right.
we originally envisioned him as a thin, wiry,
Yes.
little hyper guy. And so when Tom was hired, we figured, well, okay, he's probably going to want us to redevelop, rethink the character. Nope. And he read the dialogue word for word.
John.
Probably did,
John
John
did, yeah.
Candy.
Yes.
Probably did the same thing on your movie.
Yeah, and ironically enough, I was always imagining a Tom Hanks in the lead. and that's where casting, you need to be, flexible
Yeah, you
and
do.
open-minded, and suddenly John did it, and it took on its own, world. But he was a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
I was actually down in the filming for about a month in Florida and got to hang around with him, and he was a great guy.
Yeah.
They didn't throw you off the set?
That's for part 2.